This year, Saucony released 3 shoes with the same name, Endorphin. It's not meant to confuse you, though I see how it might, but each distinct shoe here has a purpose. And I'm going to break it down in this video so that by the end, you know which Endorphin is right for you. Let's go. So first things first, why 3 versions of the Endorphin? Running shoes these days have become very specialized, especially on the performance side of things. If you're shopping for a workout shoe or a racing shoe, you're basically choosing inside of 3 separate categories. I'll break them down quickly. First, you have your massive super trainer, which are big, bulky shoes with big stack heights, usually a carbon plate, that are very powerful but also heavy, and they're meant to last you for long runs and longer threshold workouts. Second, you have the opposite of that, your smaller, lighter workout shoes that I tend to like for intervals, fartleks, hills, anything that encourages a really fast turnover. And then the third category, the super shoe, which is the best of both worlds. All the power of your big bulky super trainer with the lightness and speed of your smaller workout shoe. They're usually the most expensive, the most elusive, and just generally the coolest. And they're the ones that you should wear for races. Now, some runners who don't mind spending a lot of money on shoes carry all 3 types, and that's what I've been doing this year. So I've really enjoyed the Nike Pegasus Premium for like my longer type runs or long threshold runs. That's super trainer. And then for my shorter runs like intervals or hills, I've been really liking the Asics Magic Speed 4. And then for my races, I've been wearing the Adidas Adios Pro 4. Now, I'm sure that shoe brands would prefer that you don't do what I do and pick and choose different shoes from different companies, and instead develop one shoe that suits every purpose and hope that you invest in the full stack. So that's what's going on with Team Endorphin here. Now, you obviously don't have to buy them all, but it's important to know the difference between each Endorphin so that you end up making the right choice. So let's analyze each shoe a little bit deeper, starting with the Endorphin Trainer. So this guy is your bulky super trainer. Right under the foot, there is a layer of Saucony's fastest foam called Incrediron, which the company usually just uses in their racing shoes. And then just under that is a 3/4 length carbon plate that gives a bit of extra power. And then around the plate and under it is this big layer of dense, heavier power run foam that adds stability and support, but the lower bottom also makes it slower and a bit more clunky. So all these elements together make the trainer a little bit heavy, but also moderately powerful. And I'd say this shoe is usable for long runs and also tempo runs. Now the counterpart to the Endorphin Trainer is the Endorphin Speed. So this one is much lighter, much closer to the ground, and the materials are a little bit different. The plate's not the same. So the Speed actually has a nylon plate and not a carbon plate, which is a little bit softer on the landing. There's also a huge difference in the midsole foam. So for whichever reason, Saucony used its Power Run PB foam in the Speed 5, which exists somewhere in the middle of the bottom foam here in the trainer that's really dense and heavy, and then the super responsive Incrediron foam at the middle of the trainer. I think it was kind of a missed opportunity from Saucony not to use the Incrediron foam in the Speed 5 because that would have added so much propulsion to this shoe. That's not so much a knock on the shoe. I still think it's really fast. I love it for intervals. That Power Run PB foam is still light and fast in its own right, but I think they could have made this shoe even faster. And then let's add the third, and in my opinion, best Endorphin of the gang. It's the Elite 2. This is your super shoe. Straight up a racing shoe, much too powerful for training. It would be overkill for anything else. It's a heck of a shoe. Lighter and more powerful than both of its siblings. It is made for speed and speed only. So 2 layers of this Incrediron foam. It's got a full-length carbon plate, a big cutout in the outsole just to save on some weight, a super thin upper to keep it light. This one is an absolute winner. It's priced as a winner, but it is fast. Okay, so now you know which shoe of the Endorphin family best suits your needs. Quick recap. Big, bulky super shoe for long runs and tempos, Endorphin Trainer. Quick, fast workout shoe for speed work like hills, intervals, Endorphin Speed 5. Races, Endorphin Elite 2. Now, I want to compare each shoe to what else is on the market so that you can decide if you want to go the way of the Endorphin at all. So let's start with the Endorphin Trainer. I actually think this shoe is the weakest of the three, not compared to each other because they have different purposes, but I just found that it didn't really hit with me like the others did. The reason is I don't find the trainer to be very propulsive for a big super trainer. And at the same time, I find it very hard. It bounces hard off the ground and doesn't save your legs that much.
A comparison would be the HOKA Skyward X, because it has some foam, a plate, just a whole lot of protection underfoot. And this shoe feels lighter than the Skyward X. They do feel clunky under my foot, but they're not overly heavy, so that kind of saves them. But at the same time, if I'm looking for a max trainer, a shoe that can do everything, I'd rather go with something like the Super Blast, or maybe even a Cloudmonster Hyper.
So on our channel, we have a 4 metric rating: design, performance, comfort, and value. And the trainer got a 6.6, which is lower than the other two. We dinged it on value because we found it to be expensive, and same thing just with the performance. It just didn't quite have the speed or the cushioning that I think a big bulky super shoe should have. Meanwhile, I love the Speed 5. And I appreciate it especially because it's been a little bit hard to find small, light workout shoes these days, because I think brands are focusing more on those big, bulky super trainers. The Speed is like a breath of fresh air. I feel really natural when I run in it, and even though it's pretty small, it still packs a punch. I still feel powerful in the shoe, and at the same time, it's cushioned enough so that I don't feel like I passed through the meat grinder the morning after a workout. We rated it pretty generously in our final score, with performance leading the way, again, just because it's a fast shoe. And something new about the 5 that the Speed 4 didn't have is this extra tread on the outsole. Doesn't seem to add much weight to it at all, but it does add a bit of durability. And that was an issue with the Speed 4. It wasn't that durable, so I'm hoping that the Speed 5 lasts me a little bit longer. If it ends up being a super durable shoe, that value score will probably go up, but right now we have it at a 7.6. And finally, my favorite of the three, the Endorphin Elite 2. I've said this before, I think the Elite 2 is the most underrated super shoe of the year, and I think I know why. We gauge the performance of a super shoe based on the speed of its wearers, right? And it just so happens that the fastest athletes in the world right now don't wear Saucony. They wear Nike, Adidas, Asics, because those brands sponsor them. And so who's to tell and who's to say that the Endorphin Elite 2 is one of the fastest shoes in the world if the fastest runners in the world don't wear it? Well, I've wear tested it, and my take is that, well, I know that it's lighter than a Nike Alphafly 3, and I find it to be more powerful than other leading super shoes like an Adidas Adios Pro 4 or even an Asics Metaspeed Paris. I think in a few months, people will talk about the Endorphin Elite 2 as the sleeper super shoe of 2025, and you can mark my words. So here's how we rated it. Design gets a really high score because Saucony had the audacity to throw in 2 layers of the Incredi-Run foam, which is super squishy, and it works. And then very high ranking on performance just because how quickly the shoe can travel. The one knock I have on the Endorphin Elite 2 is that it's not that stable of a shoe. And I'm a bit of a pronator, and I do find that I kind of slide towards the middle if I'm not careful with my feet. So that might be a turnoff for some people, especially if you're a big pronator or supinator. But overall, it gets the best score of the 3 at 7.9. Now, before we wrap up, there's one caveat I have to mention. There's a 4th member of the Endorphin family, and that's the Endorphin Pro. It's essentially a super shoe with a little bit less pizzazz than the Elite. This year, the Endorphin Pro 5 is coming out, and when we can get our hands on it, we will review it and hopefully compare and contrast with the Elite and the other siblings of the Endorphin family. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. And if you like this video, and if you like other videos that we make, please feel free to share our channel with someone who might think the same. Our goal is to connect with runners like you. So, thanks for watching, and happy running.